There are things happening in the back offices of major grocery chains right now that most people will never be told about. Not because the information is classified, because nobody benefits from telling you. And by the time it becomes obvious, the decision has already been executed. The items that vanish first during a supply squeeze are never the ones on anyone's radar. They are not trending on social media. Nobody is writing op-eds about them. The products that disappear are the ones that have already been surgically extracted from distribution pipelines by buyers sitting in procurement meetings, making margin calculations, months before any ordinary shopper notices the empty rectangle where something used to live. What I'm about to share with you isn't speculation. It isn't doomsday content dressed up in practical language. These are actual shelf space decisions that have already been locked in. The consolidation is underway right now. In March 2026, specific SKUs are being retired. Import contracts are being allowed to lapse. Store brand lines are being quietly discontinued. And the replacement products, which are always more profitable for the retailer, are already queued up to occupy the space. 14 specific products are inside that process right now. Some cost less than $1. One of them is something most people have spent their entire lives walking past or actively avoiding. And by the time we reach it, the nutritional case for it will be difficult to argue with. This is insider information delivered plainly. Let's begin. Number 14 is dried lentils, the protein floor that's about to disappear. Most people think dried lentils are safe because they're cheap and the bags are always there. That assumption is about to cost some people a significant pantry gap. Here's what's actually happening. Several national chains are quietly compressing their bulk dry goods sections to accommodate expanded refrigerated prepared meal sections, which carry dramatically better margins. Dried lentils, particularly red and green varieties in 1-pound bags, are among the first categories being cut from lower traffic store formats. Here's why that matters more than most people realize. Lentils are one of the only shelf-stable foods that require no soaking. 30 minutes on a stovetop and you have a complete meal. Watch, they deliver roughly 18 grams of protein per cooked cup alongside substantial iron and folate. They are one of the most calorie-efficient foods you can store by weight, with a 5-year shelf life in sealed containers at room temperature. Iron is the specific micronutrient most shelf-stable food lists ignore entirely, and it is the one most likely to degrade first when a household shifts to exclusively shelf-stable eating. Lentils cover that gap more efficiently than almost anything else in a standard grocery store. Buy them now in quantity while 1-pound bags at store brand prices are still an option. Once the format shift happens, you'll be looking at premium pouches at 3 times the per ounce cost. Number 13, roasted red peppers, the vitamin C jar, being consolidated out. Jarred, roasted red peppers occupy an interesting middle space on the grocery shelf. They are not quite a condiment and not quite a vegetable. That ambiguity is exactly why they are being displaced. Buyers at several major chains are consolidating the condiment and specialty jar sections. Roasted red peppers, particularly store-brand versions, are being cut in favor of faster-moving items like specialty olives and artisanal pickles that carry higher price points and better margins. The quiet consolidation has already begun in some regional markets. What most people have never been told: a single serving of roasted red peppers delivers more than 100% of the daily requirement for vitamin C. In a shelf-stable pantry built around beans, grains, and canned proteins, when vitamin C is almost always the first critical deficiency that develops, the human body cannot synthesize it internally. You must consume it. Beyond the nutritional case, roasted red peppers do something functionally important in cooking. They add sweetness, color, and a complexity of flavor to meals that normally taste flat. Blend them into a white bean soup, and the dish transforms entirely. Slice them onto crackers with any canned protein, and you have something that doesn't feel like deprivation food. A jar runs under $2.50 at store brand pricing. When store brands are cut, the name brand alternatives average $4.50 to $5. Same product, same factory often, significantly different price. Number 12, evaporated milk, the shelf-stable dairy substitute. Losing its shelf space. Most people walk past this can entirely. Some confuse it with sweetened condensed milk and assume they are interchangeable. They are not, Pinantum, and that confusion is precisely why evaporated milk is being quietly cut. Let's clarify the distinction once and for all. Sweetened condensed milk is a dessert ingredient, thick, sugary, and used in baking. Evaporated milk is unsweetened. Approximately 60% of its water content has been removed, concentrating the protein and fat into a format that sits at room temperature for 2 years or longer. Two major national chains are significantly reducing evaporated milk inventory in 2026. The shelf space is being redirected toward oat milk and almond milk cartons, which generate better margins and align with the brand positioning these chains are chasing. The calculation from a buyer's perspective is clean. One, from a nutritional and practical standpoint, it's a quiet removal of something with no equivalent replacement. Here is what evaporated milk does that no plant-based carton alternative can replicate. It delivers concentrated dairy protein in a form that requires no refrigeration until open. Add equal parts water and you have full cream milk for coffee, oatmeal, rice, or any cooking application. The protein density per dollar exceeds every shelf-stable carton on the market. There is also a preparation technique that professional pastry cooks have quietly used for decades. Chill an unopened can in ice water for 30 minutes. Open it and whip the contents vigorously with a whisker fork. It thickens into a cream substitute with actual texture. Not identical to heavy cream, but functional in a way that nothing else shelf-stable can approach. A single can costs under $2. This is worth stocking while store-brand options still exist. Number 11. Canned pumpkin, the year-round nutritional staple. Going seasonal-only pumpkin already sounds like October, which is exactly why this change is happening so invisibly. Several large chains are moving pure canned pumpkin, not pumpkin pie filling, an entirely different product, to seasonal availability only. September through November becomes the only consistent window. The other 9 months, the shelf space gets redirected. The commercial logic is sound from a buyer's perspective. Sales data for canned pumpkin shows a clear spike in autumn and a flat line the rest of the year. At thin margins, permanent shelf space for a product that moves slowly for 3/4 of the year is difficult to justify. But here's the nutritional information that almost no grocery industry content ever shares directly. 1 cup of pure canned pumpkin contains 245% of the daily value for vitamin A in beta-carotene form. More bioavailable than most supplements, more concentrated than carrots, delivered at 83 calories per cup with a fiber content that exceeds oatmeal. That is an extraordinary micronutrient density for a product costing roughly $1.29 per can. What makes it practically useful beyond the nutritional profile is its culinary invisibility. Pumpkin has almost no assertive flavor in savory applications. Stir it into chili. The pot gets extended and enriched with zero detectable change in taste. Mix it into pasta sauce. The body and color improve, the vitamin content doubles, and no one at the table will know. This is a food that hides in plain sight in your cooking, which is a feature, not a limitation. After the seasonal-only transition hits, every home baker and prep-focused household will reach for it simultaneously in October. Shelves will clear within days. Buy it now in quantity before that compression hits. If this kind of behind-the-scenes information is useful to you, hit like, drop a comment below, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Number 10. Canned green chilies. The 89-cent item with a neurological function. This sounds too simple. That simplicity is exactly why it works and exactly why most people skip it. 2 large chains are cutting their store-brand green chili SKUs in 2026, redirecting that shelf space towards salsa and higher-margin condiments. Once store brands are gone, the name brand alternatives price in at $2.50 or more for the same 4-ounce product. But the price story is secondary here. The primary reason canned green chilies belong on this list is something almost no preparedness content discusses. Morale is a physical resource. Military nutrition research and disaster psychology documentation consistently show the same behavioral pattern under extended food restriction. Physical function degrades slowly. Morale degrades fast. The primary driver of that morale collapse isn't hunger, it's food fatigue. The repetition of similar meals over 2 or more weeks produces measurable psychological effects. Decreased appetite, reduced rational decision-making around food, and elevated anxiety that is independent of actual caloric deficit. Capsaicin, the active compound in chili peppers, triggers a documented endorphin release via a neurological pathway that operates independently of expectation or psychology. It is not a placebo. It is a biochemical response. A small amount of dietary heat creates a measurable shift in how your brain responds to eating. It doesn't change what the meal is. It changes how your nervous system receives it, A 4-ounce can at 89 cents also delivers 45% of the daily vitamin C requirement. 12 cans for under $11. That is a multi-year morale and micronutrient supply sitting on a shelf that most people completely overlook. Number 9. Chickpeas, the resistant starch protein. Being consolidated off the shelf, the canned bean aisle looks fully stocked at first glance, but not all beans are treated equally by the buyers managing that shelf. 3 large chains are consolidating their canned bean SKUs in 2026, and chickpeas are among the first to be reduced. Black beans move faster, kidney beans move faster. Chickpeas sit longer on slower velocity, and in shelf space economics, slower velocity equals reduced presence. The nutritional distinction most people have never been specifically told: chickpeas contain significant quantities of resistant starch, a form of carbohydrate that bypasses digestion in the small intestine and functions instead as prebiotic fuel for beneficial gut bacteria. Published research consistently associates resistant starch consumption with improved satiety, reduced post-meal blood glucose elevation, and improved metabolic outcomes during periods of dietary restriction. In a scenario where your diet becomes entirely shelf-stable, remember that glucose regulation effect moves from a lifestyle preference to a practical daily advantage. You feel full for longer. You avoid the energy crashes that come with heavily processed carbohydrates. No other common canned bean delivers that specific combination at this price point. Drain a can, toss with olive oil and salt, roast at 400 degrees for 25 minutes. What comes out is crispy, nutty, and satisfying in a way that cold beans from a can are not. Or blend a drained can with olive oil, garlic, and any available acid. Canned lemon, a splash of vinegar, and you have hummus for under $1.50 with no special equipment. Once store brands consolidate, organic alternatives fill the space at $3.50 to $4. Number 8, fat-free canned. Refried beans, the dietary restriction casualty. Nobody is watching. 2 versions of refried beans share the same shelf label, and most people have never registered the difference. Full-fat refried beans are made with lard or vegetable shortening. Fat-free versions are cooked and mashed without added fat, a structurally different product with a more neutral flavor profile and a meaningfully different macronutrient distribution. Fat-free refried, bean store brand SKUs are being discontinued in favor of full-fat and premium organic versions by several regional chains, particularly within Southwestern distribution networks. Full-fat versions outsell fat-free versions. Premium organic lines generate better margins. The decision from a buyer's standpoint is obvious. But the people that decision actually affects aren't obvious from a boardroom. A meaningful segment of the population manages cardiovascular conditions, elevated cholesterol, or medically advised low-fat dietary protocols. In a normal grocery environment, substitutions are available everywhere. When your pantry becomes your primary food source, the absence of a low-fat staple protein isn't an inconvenience. It's a genuine dietary constraint with no easy workaround. Beyond that population-specific case, fat-free refried beans represent the fastest complete meal preparation available without any equipment. Open a can, add a spoonful of green chilies, spread on crackers, 7 grams of protein and 6 grams of fiber in under 60 seconds at room temperature with no cooking and no utensils beyond a spoon. Total cost across both cans, approximately $1.50. A single can runs around $1.90 today. When store brands are cut, premium alternatives will run $2.50 to $3.50 for an essentially identical product. Number 7, 6-ounce canned tomato paste. The format change most people won't notice until it's gone. This one is subtle enough that most people will only feel it when they're standing in the cooking aisle confused about why things look different. The small 6-ounce cylindrical can of tomato paste, the one that costs around 79 cents, is being phased out by several national chains in favor of larger 12-ounce and 28-ounce formats. The reasoning is pure packaging economics. Larger cans cost nearly the same to produce, generate more revenue per unit, and occupy the same shelf footprint. From a margin perspective, it's a frictionless switch. So from a household usability perspective, it's a quiet disaster. Once opened, a 28-ounce can of tomato paste cannot realistically be used before it deteriorates in most single or small family kitchens. The 6-ounce was the right portioning for real domestic cooking. The loss of that format means either waste or compromise. Beyond the portioning issue, tomato paste carries a nutritional property that most people have never been told. The heat processing involved in producing paste increases lycopene bioavailability by 2 to 4 times compared to fresh tomatoes. Nutrition research from Harvard has noted that 1 tablespoon of paste delivers more bioavailable lycopene, a powerful antioxidant, than an entire fresh tomato. It also transforms a pot of plain rice into a seasoned dish, gives depth to white beans, and adds substance to any soup in a way that nothing else at the same cost can replicate. The practical solution to the waste problem when you do use larger cans: spoon the remainder into an ice cube tray immediately after opening. Each cube is approximately 1 tablespoon. Cover and freeze. They last 6 months and pull out individually as needed. Zero waste, maximum flexibility. But buy several dozen of the small cans first, while this format still exists. If you've made it this far, you already know something most shoppers don't. Share this with someone who should. Like, comment, subscribe. It keeps this kind of information coming. Number 6, canned artichoke hearts, the prebiotic, quietly being pushed to specialty sections. Here's one that almost no preparedness content mentions. And the omission reveals something about how most of these lists are built. They're focused entirely on macronutrients and ignore what happens to gut health during extended periods of restricted eating. Artichoke hearts are one of the richest dietary sources of inulin, a prebiotic fiber that specifically feeds beneficial gut bacteria. The relationship between gut microbiome health and immune function, mood regulation, and cognitive clarity is one of the most well-documented developments in nutritional science over the past decade. When you shift to an exclusively shelf-stable diet, the first thing that changes invisibly is your gut flora composition. The beneficial bacteria that modulate your immune response and produce certain neurotransmitters begin to decline within days without adequate prebiotic fiber. Artichoke hearts in water or brine are being quietly shifted to specialty sections at several major chains, with store-brand versions being discontinued and replaced by premium marinated varieties at twice the price. The commercial logic: marinated versions carry better margins and move with the premium condiment category. Nutritionally, the plain water-packed version is what you want. Drain and rinse to control sodium. Add to any bean-based dish. Blend into a soup to add body and a subtle savory depth. A single can currently runs about $2. Once store brands are gone, the premium marinated alternatives start at $4.50 and deliver more oil and sodium than nutrition. Number 5, full-fat Thai and Vietnamese coconut milk, the import contract casualty. What's being removed from mainstream shelves isn't just a branding choice. It's a compositional change that most shoppers will never detect until they notice something tastes different. Authentic full-fat coconut milk from Southeast Asian suppliers, the kind found in the international aisle, carries between 14 and 17 grams of fat per serving. Many of the domestic alternatives that are replacing these products on mainstream shelves carry roughly half that amount. The label looks similar. The can sits in the same spot. The contents are a different product. The reason for the transition is import economics, not quality. Tariff adjustments and tightening supplier margins have made it commercially difficult for several large chains to maintain contracts with international suppliers. Domestic alternatives with lower fat content fill the space because they're cheaper to source and generate better margins. Why the fat content difference matters practically. Full-fat coconut milk is one of the richest accessible dietary sources of medium-chain triglycerides. Unlike most dietary fats, MCTs are processed directly by the liver as fuel rather than being stored. Published research has repeatedly noted associations between MCT consumption and improved cognitive function during periods of caloric stress. Your brain runs better on quality fat. This is documented biochemistry, not a wellness marketing claim. Identifying the authentic product is simple. Check fat grams per serving. Anything below 12 grams per serving is a diluted product. 14 to 17 grams means you have the real version. That verification takes 3 seconds. At Asian grocery stores, these cans typically run under $2. At mainstream chains, around $2.50. Both are heading toward reduced availability at major retailers. Number 4, canned coconut cream, the shelf-stable fat reserve. Nobody plans for coconut cream and coconut milk are consistently confused, and the confusion costs people the specific benefit each provides. Coconut cream is dense and high fat. Coconut milk is diluted. The carton versions in the refrigerated aisle are something else entirely, full of stabilizers and a fraction of the fat content found in a quality can. Distribution sources indicate that several major chains are significantly reducing coconut cream SKU counts in 2026. It ships at higher cost per unit, turns more slowly than other products, and occupies space that buyers have reallocated to faster-moving items. Here's why that removal matters in a way most people haven't thought through. Fat is not optional human nutrition. It is the substrate on which your brain functions under stress. It is how cells repair themselves. In any scenario where regular grocery access is disrupted, the fat category disappears from available supply first. Butter goes quickly, fresh dairy follows. Oils move alongside it. Coconut cream provides a dense, shelf-stable fat source with a multi-year room temperature shelf life. One can contains roughly 445 calories of predominantly fat, specifically lauric acid, one of the most bioavailable forms of dietary fat available in a standard grocery store. That nutritional profile has no real equivalent at that price point and shelf life combination. A can currently costs around $2.79. Once these SKUs are cut, diluted domestic alternatives take the space at higher prices. Turn to number 3, canned mackerel, the most nutritionally efficient forgotten tin in the store. Go to the canned fish aisle in any major grocery store right now. Look at the bottom shelf. You'll find mackerel sitting there completely undisturbed, while tuna shelves above it show regular gaps from foot traffic. That gap is not a quality gap. It is a familiarity gap. And several large chains have already communicated to seafood suppliers that they are reducing mackerel orders significantly in 2026. It moves more slowly than tuna. In shelf space terms, that is sufficient justification for a cut. Here's the comparison that almost nobody has laid out plainly. Mackerel contains more omega-3 fatty acids per serving than canned salmon. It contains more protein per ounce than tuna. When it costs approximately $1.50 per can, compared to $5 for canned salmon and $2.50 for name-brand tuna. A nutritionally superior product at a fraction of the cost, being removed for one reason only: it is not popular. Popularity and nutritional value have never been the same thing. One practical note that changes the entire experience: buy mackerel packed in olive oil, not water and not brine. The olive oil pack preserves flavor over time, adds caloric density, and eliminates the metallic quality that brine-packed versions produce. The difference between the two is not subtle. Hold this product in mind as we reach number 2, because together they form the most efficient nutritional pairing I've found anywhere in a standard grocery store at any price. You're nearly at the most important item on this entire list. Watch if this is landing for you. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It makes a real difference in whether this kind of content keeps reaching people who need it. Number 2, shelf-stable aseptic. Tofu, the complete protein. Nobody puts on any list. Let me acknowledge the reaction most people have when they see tofu on a list like this. The dismissal is immediate. I'm not going to dismiss that reaction. But here is what that reaction is costing people nutritionally, stated as specifically as possible. Complete proteins, foods containing all 9 essential amino acids in adequate proportions, are exceptionally rare in shelf-stable form. Most shelf-stable complete proteins are animal products. For households managing vegetarian diets, food allergies, or religious dietary restrictions, the shelf-stable complete protein options are extraordinarily limited. Aseptic packaged tofu, sold in small shelf-stable rectangular cartons under brands like Morinu, uses ultra-high temperature processing and a sealed multi-layer package to achieve a 12-month-plus shelf life at room temperature. This is not the refrigerated block from the produce section. This is a structurally different product, sitting unrefrigerated in the international or health food aisle, waiting for the people who understand what they are looking at. Mainstream grocery chains have been shifting aseptic tofu towards specialty sections with reduced SKU counts as part of 2026 shelf space consolidation. It doesn't generate the velocity that justifies prominent placement. That's the only reason. The preparation that surprises most people who try it: blend a carton of the silken variety into any canned soup. It becomes completely invisible. The texture dissolves. The soup becomes creamy. The protein content roughly doubles. There is no detectable flavor change. One package for around $1.89 delivers 10 grams of complete protein with 12 months of shelf life at room temperature. That nutritional math does not exist anywhere else at that price. Number 1, canned sardines in olive oil, The tin that does everything. I want to be upfront with you about this one. I know exactly what the reaction is going to be, and I'm asking you to hold it for 60 seconds. And sardines carry a reputation that has very little to do with their actual nutritional profile and almost everything to do with a single bad experience, usually with the brine-packed version in someone else's kitchen at a young age. That version deserves its reputation. The olive oil version is a different product. Let me give you the numbers. Sardines are one of a very small number of foods that naturally contain vitamin D3, omega-3 fatty acids, and highly bioavailable calcium simultaneously in a single serving. That combination is documented in NIH dietary reference data and USDA food composition analysis, not marketing materials. The D3 form found in sardines is absorbed more efficiently by the body than the D2 form found in most plant-based supplements. The calcium, delivered through the soft bones which are fully incorporated during canning, is absorbed more effectively than the calcium carbonate in most supplement tablets. The omega-3 content rivals or exceeds most fish oil capsules at a cost of under $2 per tin. Now here's the pairing I referenced when we covered mackerel. 2 servings per week. Mackerel one day, sardines a few days later. Between those 2 servings, you have covered your complete weekly omega-3 requirement, your daily vitamin D, your calcium, and over 44 grams of complete protein. Total cost, under $4. That nutritional density does not exist anywhere else in a grocery store at any price point. A combination of European import logistics pressure and contract changes with Southeast Asian suppliers is causing several major chains to reduce sardine orders significantly in 2026. The disruption is already visible in some regional markets. Buy the olive oil pack version, not water, not tomato sauce. The olive oil pack changes the flavor profile entirely. Cleaner, richer, without any of the metallic quality that brine produces. The difference is significant enough that people who have tried one version and dismissed it often reverse their opinion entirely after trying the other. What nobody in this space actually tells you. Most content covering this topic focuses on macronutrients, calories, protein grams, how many days a stockpile covers. That framing is not wrong, but it consistently misses what documented emergency scenarios actually reveal about how restriction affects people. Physical function does not degrade from protein deficit first. In most real-world cases of extended dietary restriction, the first systems to deteriorate are micronutrient-dependent ones. Vitamin C, vitamin A, prebiotic fiber, iron. These are what your immune system, your mood regulation, and your cognitive clarity run on. And these are the nutrients found in the products that are leaving shelves while most people are still debating which brand of black beans to buy. That is the insight most preparedness content never reaches. The full architecture. Here's everything in 3 functional categories stated plainly. The fat category, coconut cream, full-fat Thai coconut milk, and sardines and olive oil. A fat is the first macronutrient to disappear during any disruption because it is the most dependent on perishable products. These 3 cover that gap entirely at room temperature. The protein category, canned mackerel, chickpeas, dried lentils, shelf-stable aseptic tofu, and fat-free refried beans. Complete proteins, resistant starches, iron sources, and options that work across a wide range of dietary requirements. This is the nutritional foundation. The micronutrient and morale category, artichoke hearts, roasted red peppers, canned pumpkin, green chilies, evaporated milk, 6-ounce tomato paste, and canned jackfruit in brine. This is the category most lists skip entirely. And it is the one that determines whether a restricted pantry stays functional for 2 weeks or 2 months. Vitamin A, vitamin C, iron, prebiotic fiber, and when the morale that comes from meals that don't feel like deprivation. These are not secondary concerns. They are what separates a pantry that works from one that quietly exhausts you.